All right, guys, welcome to the show. Subscribe and rate review on Apple Podcast. The episodes are also on Spotify, Anchor, Snitcher, all that jazz, and KeithReza.com. A couple things going up. There are some shows coming around. I have a couple. Unfortunately, it's still only at the Rec Room right now, but this year I think I'll just be around there and working on it. I just did the Flappers Comedy Festival. That was fun. And, but so here's the dates. September 11th, Rec Room with Ida Rodriguez. You can get your tickets at www.recroomhb.com. And then October 30th, Rec Room with Jeremy Hotz. If you guys know, he's one of my favorite people to ever work with. He was my favorite boss. I really liked him a lot. He was fun. And he taught me to be a better comic. And he's just a nice guy. I could say so many amazing things about him and Ida too. But that show is very important to me because whenever I do a show with Jeremy Hotz, it's really shows I look back on and think, wow, this is why I'm in this game. Then we're doing November 14th with Corinne Olympius. And yeah, so that's all we got so far in the books. You can get your tickets to either show at www.recroomhb.com. Subscribe, rate, review to the show. Alan Lee will not be joining us today. It was short moment notice. We have a great guest. I was actually supposed to do this in the green room yesterday with her at Oxnard when I opened up for Bob Saget, but it just didn't work out. And she said we'll do it on Zoom today. So I'm very grateful. My guest is the great Mary Lynn Rajskub. You've seen her on 24, where she played one of Kiefer Sutherland's cop sidekicks. She's been in countless movies. Dude, Where's My Car? Road Trip. I thought her scene in Road Trip was hysterical. She has a new movie on Amazon Prime with Chris Pratt called The Tomorrow War, which is streaming right now. It's number one on Amazon at the moment. And she has a comedy special that she filmed during the pandemic in her garage that's out now. And we're going to talk to her about that and her roles and all that jazz. So yeah, if you like it, tell a friend, subscribe, rate, review, and follow the show on social media at Reza Riffs. Give us some love. Enjoy Mary Lynn Rajskub, guys.
You're listening to Reza Riffs with Keith Reza and Alan Lee, right here on LA Talk Radio.
Mary,
Recording in progress.
Hi.
how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Fun night last night. You also did the Comedy Store after, I saw on Twitter. That's awesome.
No, I didn't do the Comedy Store after.
Oh, you didn't?
No way, dude.
Oh, the Twitter said you did the original room.
It must have been like leftover from the night before. I did it on
Oh, like saved in the
Thursday.
drafts and then it got tweeted. Oh,
Or people
nice.
retweeted or something.
Oh, nice. All right. Well, I'll cut that part out. Thank you so much for doing it.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, it only took 20 times asking, and then when we were on the
You know
show, I thought
that's how it goes sometimes.
that was a fun show. You killed it, both shows. It was awesome.
You too. Yeah, that was super fun. It's nice to be out there doing that with Bob,
Yeah. You were doing a lot of comedy over Zoom too. You were saying, like, what was that like compared to? Because like I only did one Zoom show, and I thought it was very hard and awkward.
It is very hard and very awkward. I remember really early on, there's this woman, she went on to organize a lot of really good outdoor shows, but when Zoom was brand new, she had a bunch of comedians on, and we all just were kind of like that was before people even organized shows. So I think at the very beginning, it was very awkward, especially when they don't put sound on for the audience.
Right.
So there's little things that really help. And there's a few people that, as time went on, kind of got it right. The Nowhere Comedy Club is a really good one.
Yeah.
Because they sort of replicate Showtime as much as they can. And the idea of having a few people have their microphones on so you can hear laughter. And it's almost, and the people I've seen do it right ask the audience, like, do you think you'd be a good laugher? Would you leave your sound on? And, then there were people that like crashed the Zoom, like Zoom hecklers. But then I've done quite a few Zooms where there's sometimes no visual and no sound. And that's another level of pretty messed up, because you really are just simply talking to yourself and your own image on a screen, which is...
Would you think that might be a little easier though? Because like you can imagine like it's doing a live radio. You know what I mean?
I don't really understand what the point of doing stand-up is when you're just doing it for yourself. But then even weirder, because people are there, but you can't hear them. So it's like it's like a torture experiment where you're like just in a box and you don't get any of the human response that is the whole premise behind performing stand-up. Like that is really the main reason why anyone would do stand-up comedy. That's the only reason why you do it, is to get the audience response.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you could do a radio play or read some poetry to yourself, read aloud at home. I mean, but I will say I did start to get affection for Zoom shows towards the end, especially when they were a little bit interactive. Jackie Cation had I think she still does it, but she ended up doing the show, and then towards the end, it would become a hang with the audience, and then the audience would always show their pets, and that was always, so it just kind of morphs into a different experience. And, for a while, when that was the only thing, I started to kind of like Zoom shows. And then once I got a chance to go back live, I had a straggling Zoom show after I had done live shows, and then trying to go back to Zoom show was just like miserable. I was like, no.
Well, that was another cool thing about you, because you released a special in your garage, during the pandemic. So like that is true. So like, what was the process like that? Like, when did you say, okay, I'm just going to do this and do it? Because you did it.
Well, that was really fun, because I have my friend who's been working. I've been working with her on all different kinds of stuff, but she helped me kind of nudge me to do that, because I was headlining a Zoom show, and I was supposed to record an album before the pandemic, and I was doing all this stuff that was like topical within the pandemic. During my headlining Zoom show. So that weekend, we kind of were like, oh, we're just going to record this Zoom show. And we tried to record the actual Zoom show, and it didn't work, just because the eye line's off, and of course the sound, because you have straggling, it just wasn't good. So we decided to replicate that show a day later. And she and I did like lighting design in my garage, and it was really fun. And I really would not have been able to do it without her sort of nudging it along and sort of being the producer and director on it, and I had enough things throughout the show that were things that I had said on stage many times that sort of anchored the other stuff that was more on the fly.
Yeah.
So I had things that would, things that I knew the rhythm of.
I thought that was me for a second.
Yeah, that was like, time to do a podcast. Don't forget. So I really don't feel like doing anything today. I'll be honest with you, but I'm happy to be here. But anyway, it kind of like anchored it with material that I knew in between stuff that I didn't know very well that could keep me going and keep the tempo. But it
Yeah.
definitely is a different experience. And then when I added, my friend did the score for the piece, the special in the garage, and that really took it to another level because it really accentuated my oddness.
Yeah.
Like I think when I'm on shows with other comics, I'm like, I'm a regular comic. I talk just like normal. And then once I had a score behind me performing for no one in my garage, it really heightens whatever odd way I have of speaking and storytelling and however I tell my material. It just made it that much more off the beaten path, I guess.
Well, see, I don't think you're odd, but like I feel like because I'm odd too, you know what I mean? So I feel like we kind of bond in that. We're very monotone and we're not like standoffish. This is just who we are, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I was thinking that as you said that because when I heard your stand up last night, yeah, you're not odd at all. You were very deadpan, but you're very clear and
Yeah.
relatable. And I do find that I've gotten into trouble in the past, not trouble, but like part of the exercise of stand up over the years has been to speak clearly because really that's all it comes down to is when people, because I used to like mumble a lot and change topics and kind of like look off into the distance.
Yeah.
And a lot of stand up is just I do it for myself because it forces me to like commit and be aggressive and be clear. Because that's the biggest thing when comedians, I'm sure you've seen this a lot or done this yourself, or times where a comedian is like, oh, well, that didn't work. Or even they blame the audience like, oh, I guess you didn't get that. And as a viewer and somebody who's like paying attention, and does stand up so you can kind of see it a little bit differently. It's like, no, you just missed something or you
Yeah.
weren't being clear or your idea wasn't coming across or you thought it was coming across in a way that you really didn't set it up properly. So most of the time those are that's
Well,
what's happening.
yeah, like the way I look at it is because like I mean, I'll be honest, there's been shows where I've blamed an audience, but I look at it like after the show thinking, okay, maybe it wasn't the audience. Maybe it was because of what you said. Because like I stutter sometimes, or sometimes, especially when I'm doing a 5 minute set, I find 5 minute sets are the hardest because I want to like cram as much jokes as possible. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I think longer sets are way easier than shorter sets, and I think a lot of comics don't understand that.
Yeah, you do have to, well, unless you're trying to
Yeah,
cram a ton of material into a longer set.
yeah. It's
But
like a
yeah,
it's
I
like
know
a
what you
Mitch
mean.
Hedberg style. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about the new movie that I watched the other night, which I loved, the Tomorrow War, which you're the star, and and like we were joking about what happened. I don't want to give spoiler alerts in case someone hadn't seen it, but let's just say you saved Chris Pratt. You know what I mean? So
Pretty much. Yeah,
yeah,
I give him the ability
yeah, you
to
saved him.
go on being the hero. Behind every good hero is a
There comes
woman,
another hero.
another hero,
Yeah,
a woman who's ready to sacrifice herself and her well-being so that the man can be the big man, you
yeah.
know?
But what was it like filming a movie like that? Because I know you've done comedy movies, but and you did 24, but this is like your first, right? Like action
Yeah.
packed thing. Yeah,
I mean, honestly, during it, I was really full of a lot of complaining just because it was like really hard and you never knew what was going on. I mean, it
yeah,
was fun. It was definitely fun, but it just was. But then once I saw the final product, I sort of understood just the scale of movies like that. And there's so many different moving parts, and there's so many things that they're capturing that as an actor down on the ground, it's just like, what are we doing? Like, I'm sure you just see my elbow in that stairwell, and you've got all these like, but there's always like a bigger picture in an action movie like that, and a lot of times you really are sort of not the pawn, but it's just different from being in a scene where you're having a conversation with somebody and you understand the parameters of it. I think that's what I learned is like that type of movie is like so unwieldy, and you really don't know what you're going to get until it's done. And that it was really fun for me to see the whole product and see all the different, I mean, it was a pretty massive, it really tried to do a lot of different things.
Uh-huh.
It's almost like 3 movies in one, like there's this section with our whole group that first gets recruited to the future, and then there's the family stuff, and then there's the whole like third half of the film where they're like going to find the anecdote or whatever the antidote, and a lot of anecdotes along the
Yeah.
way. But yeah, I was really excited of how it turned out. I definitely heard like a lot of mixed reviews about it. Some people love it, some people hate it, but
I loved it. I mean,
did you?
yeah, and like I'm a huge movie guy, but like I like going to, like we talked about this. I like going to the movie theaters, and I don't really like watching them at home because I think there's something magical going to a theater and paying for a ticket. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, for sure. And you can see the influence in the director of this film, Chris McKay, of like he's just like a super movie fan, and you can see all that he like the Alien is like an amalgamation of every movie Alien that he's ever seen, and like sort of his love for being able to craft his own version of all these big moments. And he also was the director of the Lego Batman movie, so this was his first
like
live action
action.
film.
Yeah.
So that was really exciting to be a part of that as well.
Now I wanted to ask you because like when you do comedy, like for example, like last night when I worked with you and Bob, like I feel just working with you guys made me a stronger comic because I learned from watching you guys. You know what I mean?
Oh.
And I wanted to like whenever I do stand up with anyone like that, like it's like comedy PhD because I feel you can never be the best comic. All you can do is just get better. And what's that like when you do movies? Because I know you've done movies with comics too, like Bob and Hal Sparks and Tiffany Haddish, you know, and those are some of my favorites. So like, how do you translate that? Do you learn that as an actor too, or does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely is like a completely different experience, and I don't really relate stand up so much in filmmaking. I mean, there really is nothing like performing live in front of an audience is really its own set of things. I mean, I will say I did a movie called Night School with Kevin Hart and Tiffany Haddish. That was the one I did with Tiffany Haddish, and all the people, like the cast of characters that we were in the night school. That was the first time I was given the opportunity to improvise, and I guess it was, you could say it was nervous, but I almost was like, I'm so used to not having time and not wasting time and trying to like stick to the script that was the first time on such a big budget movie with so many people in a scene that they would take their time and do the coverage on like my character. So all of us people in that classroom, and I'm connecting this to like the comedy thing or potential like improv comedic situation.
Yeah.
And my buddies in the scene had to like nudge me of like, this is your coverage, like you can improvise here. But I was so not used to doing that. And then once I kind of was able to lock into like what the improvising would be as that character and like let loose, that was definitely, learning on the job from these other guys who felt more free to do that, because I just never, when you're in the middle of shooting something, I don't know, I just am more like trying to not take up too much time, and
Right.
and like get
Just
it
do
right
it.
within the parameters of what I think is reasonable, because it seems like so silly that you're able to like be saying ridiculous things and they're taking the time to have the camera on you. But that definitely was that type of movie where everybody supported each other doing that so that they could like pick those moments. And I had really been wanting to do that type of movie for a long time, so that was great.
Now, do you when you read a lot of scripts too? Does like from like a script from like 24 or the War Tomorrow to a comedy script, like how does that adjust to your mind? Do you have trouble like reading the script flows?
um yeah, I mean, when I get an audition, I always, sometimes they don't give you the whole script. They'll just give you
Sides.
sides for the audition. But I really like to read the whole script because that can change your point of view. And it really is a tone thing, is the biggest thing of reading the script, is like cluing in on the tempo and the tone, and whether or not it's going to rely on the way people talk versus, oh, this is really plot heavy, or this is not meant to be funny at all.
Yeah.
Sometimes if something is like super dramatic, I'm just like, whoa. Or it can be, the opposite, where sometimes it's trying to be funny and it's like maybe not my sense of humor, or I'm like, oh, I see what they were trying to do, or what that will eventually be rewritten into. But yeah, that's definitely a different experience,
Yeah.
reading something and then seeing what it ends up
Yeah.
becoming.
I've only done one movie and like it wasn't with other comics or whatever. And I was just like the funny guy because I just got it from my stand up and I was only in one scene and I just thought it was just like I don't want to be an actor. You know what I mean? I just thought
Really?
yeah, I just thought it was just so like it took like 12 hours just to film one scene. You know what I mean? I was just like,
Yeah, it's really, really very different
yeah, like
tempo, at pace. It's a lot of waiting around, and then all of a sudden it's like, you're on, go. And it's like really freaky to be like that. That's the major chunk of the job, is to
yeah,
be able to turn on a dime and fit into that mode of where you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to be like, because the scene is very different than what you were doing just like 4 minutes prior, which is
yeah,
kind of like zoning out and sitting around and waiting. Like, it's a completely different energy. And I know what you're saying, because it can be, I was going to say it can be unsatisfying, but because that's my background, I'm totally used to that. And I think you get spoiled as a stand up, because as a stand up, you're just in control and you get to say whatever you want, and it's all, you get to do all the things right in the moment, and you don't have to wait, and you don't have to wait on these other elements of lighting and sound and camera and other people in the scene. And it's just completely different. But I love acting too. It can be its own satisfaction to sort of compartmentalize these little moments, or like a half a page or one line or one scene that you get to do over and over. Um, and you can fine tune within,
yeah.
little like the time when you're shooting is like the least time out of the day, right? The rest of it,
Have
I
you
mean,
ever thought about writing a script yourself for like for you, just you?
um yeah, I mean, I wrote a script that got sold to Comedy Central, and I don't know what they're doing with it right now. I don't know if Comedy Central exists. My manager said that they're now trying to sell it to another network. I was like, okay, I don't even really know what that means,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's a script about a mom who just kind of walks away from her family to improve herself, and
Yeah.
she ends up getting into this cult for 3 years, and then she comes back to her family and tries to insert herself back in there. So that's a comedy. And
Is
I've
Dikembe
written
Mutombo in it?
I wish.
uh,
Yeah,
I,
she grabs the cat and then just like wanders off.
well, I just have 2 more questions for you because I want to respect your time. Question number 1: who, during when you do film or stand up, who's the coolest person you've ever worked with?
Oh, come on.
That's a great question.
Who's the coolest person?
Yeah, like
Harrison Ford.
Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then this question is just for me because I'm a huge fan. But what was Sean William Scott like? Was he cool?
Yeah, I mean, that was a really I didn't really hang out with him that much. He was
Yeah.
really nice and a lot of fun and kind of what you would expect from watching him. Um, that was, one of, if not his first big thing when I did Road Trip. So,
You also did Dude, Where's My Car? So you worked with
oh
him
yeah,
twice.
that's right. You would think I would have hung out with him. Yeah, he really didn't have any interest in me. It was like
Oh,
I didn't exist. I was just a side person in Sean William Scott's life. But no, is fun
oh,
and
I'm
funny,
sorry to hear
and
that.
no, I wasn't like that at all. I didn't want to
Yeah.
hang out with him either. He's a child. He's a child. No, he's super talented, and I love that like sort of frenetic energy. And so he was just like in his zone. And I'm, a fully grown lady. I don't need to be hanging out with Sean William Scott, but he was great. He was great.
Yeah.
I
I
love
just
his like vibe, like
yeah.
love watching him. It's a lot of fun.
I just think he's like one of those actors who I think would be fantastic as a stand-up just because he's so goofy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I met him once, but he was nice, but he was still goofy when I met him. So I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that's just really him. Like he's not
Yeah,
really.
I think it is, as far as I can tell.
Well, Mary Lynn, where can the folks at home follow you and support you and get your special at?
You can get my special on Vimeo. The link is in my social, and I'm on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook at Mary Lynn Rajskub.
All right. Well, it was an honor to work with you. I mean, you've always been one of my favorites. Thank you so much for finally doing this. I know I kind of harassed you too much and I kind of like put you on the spot, but thank you so much for doing it. It
No, I
really meant.
appreciate that. It really is just a matter of like when you get requests like that over social, it's just hard because like social media can be overwhelming. But because you like harass me so much, it was just to the point where like you become familiar, like I feel like I know you. And then I
Yeah.
was like, oh yeah, it's Keith. And then like the fact that it came together live like this. And like I said, I didn't even realize you were going to be doing stand up until like that day. And I was like, oh, so that was really a treat for me. And so thank you for being persistent.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for saying yes. It really meant a lot to me. It was an honor to work with you, and I hope we do it again soon.
Me too.
All
Thanks,
right.
Keith.
Bye, Mary Lynn. Have a great
Bye.
day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, guys. So subscribe, rate, and review to the show. That was my interview with Mary Lynn Rajskub. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it. And yeah, Sean William Scott, we love you. All right.
You're listening to Reza Riffs with Keith Reza and Alan Lee, right here on LA Talk Radio.